Welcome to DRJ's webinar series. I'm Bob Arnold, President here at Disaster Recovery Journal. We thank you for your attendance today and we hope you gather some great information from today's webinar. Everyone's phone has been muted and we ask you to utilize the question panel found on the right-hand side of your screen. Our speaker today will attempt to answer as many of these as possible at the end of the presentation. Today's sponsor is TAMP Systems. Today's topic is severe winter weather and your business continuity plans. Our speaker today is Carmine Galletti. Carmine is a certified business continuity professional. He is a recognized senior consultant and industry expert. He is a project manager at TAMP Systems for consulting projects including service delivery and engagement management. He is also the manager of training support at TAMP. With no further introduction, I'd like to welcome and turn the mic over to Carmine.
Thank you, Bob, and hello, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful webinar put forth by DRJ. We here at TAMP are pleased and proud to be part of a webinar with Bob and his staff. So, Bob, thank you very much to you and your staff for helping make this possible. Well, I'm sitting here looking at the calendar as I'm speaking to you, and it says December 7th, and it seems like just a few days ago we were out in San Diego at DRJ Fall World, checking out the lovely San Diego weather and enjoying some informative seminars and going through the exposition hall looking at vendors. And we got on the plane, we blinked, we turned around, and what do you know? We're on the heels of winter. And you know what that means? Old man winter and Mother Nature are getting together right as we speak, getting ready to dish us another doozy of a winter. So we can only imagine what they have in store for us. And that being said, what we're going to do here today is we're going to talk about some of the things that all of you can do for your business continuity planning to deal with some of these different winter storms that we're going to be experiencing. And while it is true that we can't fight Mother Nature or Old Man Winter and control what they do, we can really limit the impact on what happens when they throw these storms at us. So whether it's a blizzard or an ice storm or a nor'easter or something else that happens this winter, we hope to give you some pretty good ideas today on things that you can add to your business continuity plans and your business continuity programs and minimize the impact a little bit when things get a little crazy. So you know, business continuity plans really deal with the effects of a disaster. And certainly, winter weather events can turn into a disaster, but certainly disasters are not limited to simply winter weather. Any event, and there are literally probably hundreds of them, can become a disaster. So let's define the word disaster. And really, a disaster is any incident, whether it be a winter weather storm or any other such incident, that causes you inaccessibility to your facility or the inoperability of your technology and business operations, and possibly permanently. Well, we certainly hope that possibly permanently doesn't happen. That would mean your facility got destroyed or severely damaged. But certainly a winter weather storm or some other such incident can prevent you from getting to your office, prevent you from operating normally. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So as we know, Old Man Winter is getting ready to take center stage here in a couple of weeks, and there are a whole bunch of things that can happen, and some of the more popular winter events that can happen are listed here on the screen. Normal snowstorms, blizzards, ice storms, nor'easters, winter flooding. If you're near a major river or lake that has to flow through your area, certainly ice can jam up the water and flooding happens, flood your facility. Massive snow melting come the end of the winter when spring starts to kick in and we get warmer temperatures can certainly cause flooding. Extreme cold can absolutely be one of the worst things that happens. Sometimes you're on a commuter railroad and nothing works properly simply because it's too cold. So sometimes extreme cold can be just as much of an issue as a blizzard or an ice storm. Ice fog, when the snow and ice begin to melt and again those warmer temperatures kick in, that fog can actually be pretty thick, and that can cause problems getting around. And if you're in a mountainous area like maybe Denver or upstate New York or parts of Pennsylvania in the Midwest, avalanches, if you're too near those large amounts of snow, depending on how much is falling, certainly avalanches can be an issue for your town. So let's look at some of the effects of severe winter weather. I got a couple of pictures here on the screen after a blizzard, and for those of you who are familiar with Interstate 95, Certainly, you don't expect I-95 to look like that ever, but certainly after a blizzard, major roadways like I-95 or any other major highway in your area can be blocked. It'll prevent your employees from getting where they need to go, your vendors from getting where they need to be. Supply shipments certainly will be prevented from reaching their destination, and all of that will continue to hamper your ability to perform your business up to full capacity and cause problems for your business until the weather subsides. Certainly your facility itself, if your facility is not cleaned properly, even though maybe main roads allow you to get to the area of your facility, certainly we need to be able to get into the facility. So whether the facility has been damaged or it's blocked because of the weather, your employees are not going to be able to get into the office, and they're certainly not going to be able to perform their mission-critical functions because they can't get into the building. And that's really the case not just with severe winter weather, but any disaster can cause you the inability of not getting into your facility. And of course, there's an old famous one that happens is the power lines going down. That is a huge concern because a number of things that can happen to rip your power lines going down. Trees can fall. Trees will rip down the power lines. Ice and snow, heavy snow and ice certainly will weigh those power lines down. And once they go down, obviously entire regions of our area, of our country, power will go out, affecting businesses and homes. And you need to be ready for that. You want to make sure that you've got things in place so that you can take care of that. You certainly won't want to be able to have to depend on your local utility company to get power back. We learned from the hurricane here in the Northeast over the summer. There were neighborhoods that had no electric power for weeks after that hurricane, and the hurricane was actually a fairly quick and mild one as far as hurricanes go. So certainly, you don't leave it up to the utility companies to help you out. So let's talk about some winter weather facts to just remind us how severe winter weather can be. So we called our friends at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, otherwise known as NOAA, to you and I, and they told us that there were 21 winter storm deaths last year. Now, 21 in and of itself might not seem like a big number. When you do the math and consider how many weeks winter is, and you start dividing up, you start to find out that that's an awful lot of people dying because of winter weather. And we're talking about maybe driving in a winter storm when they should have stayed home, chancing going somewhere when they shouldn't have been, maybe shoveling snow and getting ill. And surprisingly, North Carolina recorded the highest death toll. I was actually very surprised at that. I thought it would be one of the northern most states. They recorded the highest death toll out of the 21. And the highest category of victims were males between 30 and 60 years of age. And we mentioned extreme cold. NOAA also told us that there were 34 extreme cold deaths last year. Illinois and Tennessee were the leaders, unfortunately, in this statistic. And again, the highest category of victims were males, older males between 50 and 70 years of age. And again, extreme cold, I mentioned earlier, extreme colds can really, really play havoc with situations. Things stop working that should work, and they zig when they should zag, etc. So certainly extreme cold can be an issue, even though there's no snow or ice on the ground. So what we tell our clients here at TAMP Systems, don't wait for a disaster to happen. Plan first, and certainly that comes into play with winter. You certainly don't want your office to be that facility there on the left, and you certainly don't want your delivery men to be some of these guys in the trucks there on the right, stranded on some major interstate because of the winter. When Old Man Winter starts getting his act together, again, we're not going to be able to stop him, but certainly if we can plan in advance, we can minimize the impacts of anything winter throws at us, and we're going to get into that today. So before we do, what I'd like to do is spend a few minutes doing something we here at TAMP call BCP 101. I'm going to review a little bit some of the basics of business continuity planning, kind of refresh your memory. So for those of you who may have been away from your business continuity plans for a while, we'll maybe kind of pull you in back a little bit. And for those of you that are in the thick of it, you can certainly agree with a lot of the things we're going to say. So why should a company plan? Why should a company go through the process of putting together a business continuity plan? Well, certainly concern for your employees, the ability to service your clients, that's why you're in business. Other things like audits and RFP responses, insurance, you might be favored more desirably if you have a business continuity plan. Your shareholders and your business partners, your supply chain vendors will certainly appreciate the fact that you have a business continuity plan. Your service level agreements may require it. Certainly some of you may be in some sort of business that is regulated by a government agency and that requires you to have a plan. Not to mention that bottom line there in red, it's just a prudent business practice. It just makes sense to have a plan. Without a plan, some of the things that can happen, loss of business opportunities and competitive edge, you can lose customers and market share, and there it is in red right at the top, a loss of reputation. You know, you spend years putting together the reputation for your company. It really doesn't take very long to mess that reputation up, and good luck when you're trying to get it back. So what is a business continuity plan? Some of you in the audience may be wondering exactly what a plan may be. It's just very simply, it's a document prepared in advance that contains information that would describe what you're going to do to recover and continue your operations after disaster. Whether that disaster be an ice storm or a blizzard or a hurricane or a fire, you need to be ready to roll to recover your operations following that disaster. Your document needs to address what you're going to do, what you're going to tell your customers, your vendors, your business partners, your employees certainly, and if necessary the news media, depending on the business you're in and who you interact with. And certainly your plan needs to provide the resource information that you're going to need for recovery of operations. You know, the document really needs to be a standalone document so that beginning to end, from cover to cover, it's going to get your business back online exactly where it needs to be. So let's talk about some standard business continuity plan ingredients. These are typically sections of a business continuity plan that you're going to want to have in your document. The introduction, although it sounds simplistic enough, is really going to address what the document is all about, what the scope and objectives of your plan are. You should have a section on incident response, certainly detailing the procedures. If there's an incident, what are the immediate steps that should be taken if that incident happens, if it happens during the business day, if it happens during off hours. Once an event has happened, an assessment needs to happen. We need to get the right people to our site to kind of look to see what happened and figure out what's going on, and to see if this really is a disaster, and are we going to activate our plan? Are we going to declare a disaster and activate our plan and pull that document out that we hope we'd never use? Then the notification kicks in. We need to start calling people, call our employees, call our vendors and our clients, and anybody else we may need to call. Put those notification procedures into play. Then we're going to need our recovery teams, all of our members of our staff who are going to put their recovery hats on and get the recovery effort going. We're going to need our recovery teams to kick it in and perform the recovery tasks so that they can begin to recover our business and get our business back online. Any emergency information, certainly federal and state and county and local agencies that you may need help from. Having that information in your plan is always helpful, especially during severe winter weather. Mission critical operating procedures. You know, there's an old saying, you know, sometimes during a disaster, people forget how to tie their shoes. And certainly, while we don't want people to forget anything, we can't count on people remembering everything that they do. So certainly, it would be very helpful, although it sounds like a lot of work, you know, take the chance, take the time, document everything you normally do, put it in that plan, or put it somewhere where it can be referenced easily, so that this way you can always get a hold of those operating procedures and everybody knows exactly what they have to do. And of course, we mentioned earlier, dependency and resource inventory information. We're going to talk about that in just a bit. So what is this recovery resource and dependency information? Well, it's lists of items that you need at your fingertips so that recovery becomes much, much easier. A list of your equipment that was in your facility. You may need to buy new equipment or lease new equipment, so certainly we need to know what you had, whether it's office equipment or data center equipment or even manufacturing tools or vehicles. All your facilities that you use for regular business, your facilities that are used for recovery, such as alternate work sites, staging areas, emergency operations centers, printed materials, such as marketing materials, stationery, forms, business cards, letterhead. We may need to get that stuff reprinted. We need to have inventory information so we can contact the printer and have things printed up again. Personnel contact, extremely important. You need to contact your personnel, let them know what's going on, what do they need to do, where do they need to go. Information on your software and your business applications so that we know what we need to restore and what we need to do to get our business going again. Special supplies. Maybe you use a special ink and paper for your paychecks. Paychecks are pretty important after a disaster. Want to pay our employees. Want to make sure we get the right paper and the right ink for those paychecks. Vendor contact information. Vendor is going to be very important during recovery from a disaster. Mission critical vendors. Vendors that are going to provide service level services for us, recovery services. You need to be able to get in touch with those vendors. Your client contact. Certainly you may need to call your clients, let them know that something's going on and your services will be delayed. And vital records, the vital data that you use to operate your business. And certainly we're not suggesting to have the data in your plan, but certainly an inventory on that data. You know, is it electronic? Is it on the network? Was it backed up off-site? If it is, what's the retention period? How do I get that data when I need to restore it from my data system? So you know what goes into a plan, but you know there's a certain strategy that you're going to need when developing your plan. What are some of the things you need to focus on? Well, in addition to recovering your business operations, you certainly need to worry about crisis management. Somebody needs to be sitting at the top of the org chart and kind of managing everything and responding to the crisis so that there are support functions in place for the departments that are recovering their operations. So let's talk about facilities for a second. You need to be able to define your staging areas, your alternate work sites, your alternate data centers, your emergency operations centers, all those facilities that you're going to need during recovery in time of disaster. Your notification procedures. Make sure you know exactly who's going to call who, how they're going to call them, whether it involves call trees or notification systems. All of that needs to be documented. Your plan activation criteria. What is your criteria for deciding if it's a disaster, declaring it to be a disaster, and then activating your plan? You need to have all that pre-documented, all those steps in your document so that it's very easy to be done once it happens. Open the document and roll with it and make things happen. The disaster alert hotline number, always useful so that you can record a message and your employees can call that number and get information, up-to-the-minute information so they know where to go and what to do. The recovery team scheme. Everybody likes being on a team. Sure, certainly some of us wanted to be the center fielder for our favorite baseball team, including yours truly. But being on a recovery team, it certainly might be just as important so that everybody has a role and functions and tasks and that will describe what they're going to do and when they're going to do it and how they're going to do it. Those action items should be documented in the plan. Those action items, those recovery tasks should be documented so everybody knows exactly what's expected of them and the order in which they're supposed to do it. Emergency procedures, any emergency procedures you think you're going to need to help mitigate those disaster situations should be included in your plan as well. Mission critical procedures, don't leave anything to chance. You know, folks are in the middle of a disaster, they're trying to settle down. Anything that's mission critical, document it. You know, better to err on the side of caution and have things documented, even if you don't need them. You know what? You never know when you may need something that might seem ordinary right now, but in the future, during a disaster, sometimes the ordinary becomes extraordinary. And of course, recovery resource information, which we mentioned earlier, and your standard operating procedures. Again, sometimes the mundane, normal things become an adventure, and we want to make sure all of that is documented. So you've got your plan. It's snowing all over your plan. What are you going to do? How do you prepare for what Mother Nature and Old Man Winter are going to do to us? It's snowed all over our plan now. There's snow all over the screen. You know, if you wake up one day and suddenly your office building looks like that building in the picture there, you want to know that you're prepared at least to combat what's happened and to minimize the effects of the storm. So there's a big winter storm. Life is in havoc right now. Old Man Winter's having a great time at our expense. What do you do? What's the first thing you should do during a severe winter storm? Think safety first. Whether it's a severe winter storm, whether it's a hurricane, a fire, or any other kind of disaster event, your primary objective, number one on your task list, should always be to think safety first, not just for yourself, for your employees' families, any vendors that may be on site, any clients that are on site. Safety first is number one. That is your first primary objective, is to make sure everyone is safe and accounted for. And once they are, then we can switch gears and start looking at what we can do to recover our business. So with that said, let's chit-chat a little bit about some of the things you can put into place for a severe winter storm. And, you know, for those of you who are like me, are practitioners in this industry, you're going to start to look at some of these things and say, boy, you know, this all makes sense. And honestly, a lot of it is just good old-fashioned BCP common sense. It's just sometimes a matter of taking things and putting them into place. Some of them are little, some of them are easy, some of them require an investment, but in the long run, I think a lot of these things, if you put them into play, are going to make your business recoverability much, much easier, and we'll keep old man winter at bay for just a little bit. Okay, so it's we've got a severe winter storm. You've got your plan. What's one of the things we could do? Well, one thing you could do is create a standard winter weather policy. Sounds simple, right? Back in the day, and you know this happens every winter, there's a major storm on the way. Maybe it's already begun. Maybe it's coming tomorrow. You can guarantee that your employees are going to be running around thinking and trying to figure out when they're closing early, if we're going to be shut down tomorrow, if we're going to open late, who's going to get to go, who's going to have to stay. And the storm hasn't even hit yet, and already production has gone down. So you know what? Let's get senior management. Let's get the HR folks. Let's even get the legal counsel. Let's put them in a conference room now during calm times before winter rears its ugly head. Order out lunches and dinner if we have to. Let's lock them in a conference room and say, please, let's come up with a sane, intelligent, severe weather policy. The severe weather policy really should be a guideline for your employees and for everyone else that's in the company that's doing business. We want them to be able to know what they can expect, what they should do. Will they go home early? Should they work from home? Should they stay up to what times? You want to get as specific as possible. Leave nothing to chance. Document as much as you can. And certainly cover as many scenarios as you can. For winter weather, you know your geographic area better than almost anyone. Look at the weather that's happened over the last 8 or 10 years. You can go to the NOAA website. You can go to the National Weather Service website. They have historical archives on winter weather over the last X number of years. You can certainly go to these websites, see what's happened in your area, and create a winter weather policy based on that. This way, put it in print, get down the specifics of what can and can't be done based on the weather. And when that weather policy is done, distribute the policy. Don't just put it in the employee handbook and expect your employees to go running to read it. Print it out, email it, distribute it, get it in the hands of your employees. And you know what? Every year, right around this time, as people start to get their Christmas cookie recipes out, it's always a good idea to get that winter weather policy, update it if need be, and then distribute that to all your employees. And in addition, for it being a guide for employees, it empowers your department managers because they don't have to listen to the employees complain and question them ad infinitum about who's going home and when are we shutting. Absolutely, it gives them the power to advise the employees about what they can expect during the severe winter weather as far as going home and working from home. So it's certainly a good idea, relatively simple to do. Of course, I'm not the guy putting it together, but for senior management and HR, it just makes sense to get together and put something like this in place. Something else that you can do, get a notification system. Consider investing in a notification system. This will allow management to proactively get your message out through a very simple phone call that will take a matter of minutes. Again, back in the day, companies would tell their employees, hey, listen to a local radio station, watch a local TV station, find out if we're closed. Now, let's be honest, in the morning, everybody's trying to get out to work. We've got kids to go to school. Us and our spouses are going to work. Got to walk the dog, shovel the driveway, clean off the car. Nobody has time to sit by the TV or the radio. Nobody has time to go to the company website. We can't guarantee that they're going to go and call the hotline. So you know what? Yes, it's an investment. Yes, it's money spent. But you have one disaster. You send out one notification through your brand new notification system. You will realize it is money well spent. So it'll allow management to be proactive and get the word out to the employees, because you want to create less dependency on all your employees calling the hotline. You know they're going to run to their cell phones and turn it on first thing in the morning to see if they won the lottery. So you know what? Have a message waiting for them on their voicemail telling them that either the office is closed, there's going to be a delayed opening, or that they need to go to work. Certainly it removes failure points from traditional emergency call chains. How many times has somebody called you and said, okay, I'm letting you know that we're opening late today, and then you turn around and call the next person on the list and you can't get a hold of them. Were you cognizant enough to keep calling them, or did you forget about it to get your own family out the door? This way, everyone gets notified, and there's a message waiting for everyone. And you can even choose different groups of employees you may need to contact. You may have branch offices. You may have headquarters offices. You may have employees in different regions of your state or regions of the country, and you can create different distribution lists and choose which distribution list you want to call. Maybe you need to call the people on Long Island. Maybe you need to call the people in New Jersey. Whatever it is, you can certainly create your distribution list and then call the appropriate employees. And in addition to employees, some of these systems can allow you to send messages to vendors and clients. So seriously, in a matter of minutes, while you're waiting for a pot of coffee to brew, you can notify your employees, your clients, and your vendors and not even go out of your house. Pick up a phone, record a message, press a button, message is out the door. That's power, and that's something that really seriously consider it. There are a lot of them on the market. Go to our friend Bill Google and just Google a notification system. You'll see a whole bunch of companies that have them. Check them out and get a demo and see what they offer. Employee work skills. Definitely want to create an inventory of your employees' current and previous skills. What skills do they use in their current position? What skills did they use in previous positions, not only in your current company now, but in a company they worked for before? You may find out that Bill in HR used to do accounts receivable work in his last company, and you know what? If your accounts receivable team is a little bit thin, we might be able to get Bill to move over for a day or two to kind of help out and do some accounts receivable work. Really helps keeps things moving while we're a little thin with employees, while they can't make it because of the storm. So we get people to kind of move around a little bit, do some extra work, and lend a helping hand. We're all on a team, so we're all certainly here to pitch in. So it really helps to supplement your missing workforce by using current employees. And certainly, if you need to hire temporary or seasonal or even retired workers, you'll know what skills you need, so it makes bringing in someone on a temporary basis much, much easier when you have that skills inventory. So certainly, a skills inventory, very easy to do. Get it in the database, update it once in a while, once a year, get that updated so you'll have it when you need it. The work from home inventory. I know there are some managers who cringe when they hear the words work from home because they feel that production from home never really matches what's done in the office, and that may be true. But certainly when you're faced with stay home and do nothing and don't come to work because of the storm, or work from home and still be productive, I think the choice is obvious. What you want to do is create an inventory of the employees who have the ability to work from home. Make sure that they have all the technical resources that they need. Can they access all the applications they need? Can they get on the internet, the company network, etc.? Figure out if they have everything they need to be fully productive when they're working from home. And what about the employees who have no ability to work from home? You know, if somebody comes to you and says, well, I can't work from home, figure out what they might need to be productive. It might be as simple as just giving them a new version of a piece of software and they're ready to go. Certainly, it allows for productivity to continue even when your employees can't get to the office, even if they're sitting at home watching the snowfall, even if they're taking breaks for hot cocoa every once in a while, they're still going to be productive, so you're still moving things along a little bit. Again, it might not be at the same productive rate you're used to, but certainly having somebody working from home is better than not having anybody work at all. And it really keeps you on top of planning to supplement the workforce, knowing that somebody is home, they have the ability to work from home. Give them a call and say, hey, listen, you've got the ability to work from home. Help us out a little bit today, even though there's a storm. And when you're not outside shoveling, you know, put a few hours work in and help us be productive. And certainly, for future expansion of work and home capability, knowing all the technical resources people need will help you provide the capability for working home for new employees that join the firm. Plan for lodging for your key employees. Now, this is actually something not many companies think about. Now, if you're like any other company, you're probably in a corporate park, or you're in a business district, or maybe you're in a downtown area. And if you are, you're probably near a hotel. There's probably a hotel local to you. That hotel's probably part of a chain, whether it be Hilton or one of the others. You know, if you go to them and ask them to put kind of a service level agreement in place so that you can reserve some rooms at time of disaster, they are not going to turn you away. They are not going to turn away business. You put a little service level agreement in place with a local hotel, have some rooms available in advance of a severe winter storm for key or senior employees. people that you seriously need to have physically close to the office, believe me, that hotel, they're going to love you. They're going to want to help you out. They're going to want to put that agreement in place. It's more business for them. It makes you happy, and they're going to remember that when you have out-of-town visitors who need a hotel. Remember that. One hand does wash the other. So you want to have those rooms available in advance for your key or senior employees. And certainly if there is sufficient advance notice of a severe winter storm, which in this day and age with the media services we have, we certainly do know when a severe winter storm is coming. Have those key or senior employees plan in advance to stay at the hotel. Have them pack a little bag, for a couple of nights, get there, get to the hotel before the severe winter storm. They're close to the office. If God forbid the storm is so bad that they can't get from the hotel to the storm, then at least your management team is together in a physical location. All the hotels, plenty of phone service, plenty of internet service. They've got a business area where you can print things off and get a fax. It's like having an office away from the office. So certainly, a service level agreement with a local hotel, definitely something to look into. Let's talk about your field employees and determining their work policy during a severe winter storm. If you have employees that work in the field, you really need to plan for this. For example, if you have service technicians, you provide service technicians who repair some sort of machinery or computers or cash registers or whatnot, you know that during a winter storm, somebody is going to have a problem with their machinery, and you're going to need to get a service technician to those clients. You got to plan in advance. Plan for making sure that you can get those technicians out to these clients who need emergency service. Now, granted, some of these clients may tell you in an emergency. Meanwhile, they have 5 machines, 4 of them are working. That's not necessarily an emergency. But the mom and pop organization that only has 1 machine and it's down, those are the people we need to get to during times like this. So we want to make sure that we get our service technicians out to these people. You may even have to shift it around a little bit. You may have to get a technician who takes care of a different territory over to this client to repair their machinery. And, a little hint, figure out what vehicles these employees operate. If you've got a field technician who's driving a sports car, I can pretty much guarantee that he's not going anywhere in a winter storm. You want to know who the guys are that have the 4x4 Jeeps so that they can get through some of this weather. So certainly, your service field technicians, figure out in advance what they might have to do. To figure out in advance how you're going to shift around the work request. You may even provide a service where the employees work at a client site, such as a security guard service. If it's something like that, chances are that you're going to have an employee on site pretty much around the clock. And one of the things you want to make sure is that there's continuous coverage for the service you're supposed to provide. Granted, you've got a guy on site, he's sitting there watching a storm come down, and the only thing he's thinking of is, how am I going to get home? Oh, my God. You don't want him to leave his position as much as he wants to. As anxious as he's getting, he or she needs to stay there until the next shift can get in. Even though the next shift might take a while to get in, the next person to relieve them might take them a while, you need to make sure you have coverage. They need to know what the policy is. We need to make sure that we can provide that service. And, also consider what to do. Suppose the client site is closed. Just because your employee can get to the client site, the client may have shut down his office. So you need to put arrangements in place for that to make sure that if the client does close, that you're certainly going to be able to get your employee word before he leaves his house, or at least get him home safely if he's en route. Recovery services vendors. There are an awful lot of these folks out there on the market. Again, your good friend Joe Google can find you some recovery services vendors. These companies are just wonderful to do business with. They can provide you pretty much anything. The thing you have to remember about these recovery service vendors is you can't just call them out of the blue and say, hi, I need a generator. You need to have a service level agreement in place prior to using their services. Now that means a signed contract. It probably means a nominal fee. But when faced with the idea that your local utility company may take, several weeks to get your power back, paying a nominal fee to a company to make sure that you can get a generator on site so that you can get back to work seems like a pretty inexpensive investment. And they have a wide variety of products and services that they can bring to you. They've got an unbelievable amount of stock spread all over the country, and they will pretty much guarantee the time frame when you can get these products or services. And usually you'll get the products and services within 12 to 24 hours of the disaster, so that a day later you're back in business. You know what? The guy down the block, he's still waiting for the local utility company to get him his power. So even if it's power, those power lines went down because of the ice, or the trees fell and ripped the power lines down. You have no power coming to your building. Not a problem. Make sure that part of your agreement calls for a generator. Call up the company, they deliver a generator. You've got power. You're going back to work. Your neighbor in the next office, building next door, he's still home shoveling snow in his driveway. Your damaged facility. I remember, I think it was last winter or the winter before, I believe it was Buffalo, New York. I don't know if anybody on the call is from Buffalo, but they got something like 7 or 8 feet of snow in about a week to a week and a half. Buildings are just not built to withstand 8 feet of snow at one time. They're just not. Your facility is probably going to get damaged, if not from heavy snowfall. Remember that tree that fell down? It may very well have hit your building. So you know what? If it damaged facilities, not a problem. Call up the recovery service vendor. Get a mobile unit delivered. These mobile units are great. They have power. They have internet connection. They even have facilities for us folks who have to use the laboratory once in a while. Computers, desks, offices, conference room, lights, the whole thing. You tell them where to deliver it. Within about 24 hours, they'll deliver it. They'll set it up, and you'll be ready to go. Computer equipment. And this is really good for any disaster. If your computer equipment got damaged, going to a local computer supplier, they're probably going to look at you, shake their head, and apologize that they have nothing for you. Meanwhile, your recovery service vendor, he's got plenty of stock and plenty of stuff to have on hand for you if you need it. Just be ready to provide the technical inventory information of your computers. What type of computers are you using, and what types of tools are they going to need on those computers and software? Shifting your production. If any of you are a manufacturing company, certainly you may have more than one manufacturing facility, and from time to time, your facility won't be able to function because of the weather. And when that happens, you really need, and again, got to do this, plan in advance during calm time, you need to plan for shifting your production to another facility. That means you're going to have to maintain your knowledge of how all your facilities are running. So you need to know how every facility is running, so if one goes down, we can start to take work and shift it over. And when you're at the facility that can't work because of the weather, one of the things you need to know is what percentage of the workload that I have on hand that I should be working on must be completed right now. I've got X number of orders. How many of them have to be done immediately in the next few days? How many of them can wait for next week when the weather is cleared and I can get back to work normally? Those that have to be done now in the next day or two, that's the workloads that have to be shifted to one of your other facilities. You need to know, are all your facilities running at full capacity? Can they even handle additional work? We need to make sure that we're not pushing a facility past its limit, because then not only are we going to upset the customer who's missing an order because of the weather, now we're going to start to mess up orders of other people who shouldn't get affected. So we've got to make sure that we know how our facilities are running, at full capacity, not at full capacity. On the heels of that, is there enough staff to handle the extra work? We certainly don't want our workers working 12 to 18-hour days, because then their health is going to suffer. So we have to make sure that we've got enough staff, maybe have people put people on off staff, off hours a little bit, create different shifts, or certainly maybe we can hire some other workers to help out, hire some temporary workers. Maybe we have seasonal workers that we bring in from time to time. Maybe we can bring in some of them. What about our retired workers? Certainly, if we've got some folks who retired in the recent past, they would love to come on board, work for a few days, make some extra money for a couple of days and help us out with the additional workload. So these are some of the issues you really need to think about when shifting production. And, in addition to all of this, thinking about, well, what do I have to shift over? Is that capacity? Do I have enough staff? What about your vendors? If you're sending extra work to one of your facilities, that means they need extra raw materials, and those raw materials are going to come from the vendors. You need to make sure that those vendors can get those raw materials to your different facility at a moment's notice, and if not, how long will it take to get there? That may dictate whether you should even move the workload over to another facility or not. So certainly keep your vendors in the loop and have them, that information will really help you make that decision. Supply chain dependencies. Oh, yes. We're sitting here and we're talking about all the things that you folks can do to keep your company up and running during a severe winter weather storm. And these are all great ideas, and these are all things that you need to really seriously think about so that your company can run and you can provide your customers with all the products and services they need. However, from time to time, and there are parts of your business where you depend on some of your vendors to make sure, so that you can provide your service, and you're using a service from another vendor or a product from another vendor or even raw materials from another vendor. We need to make sure that those vendors can be available and will be able to provide the products and services that we depend on. You are fully within your rights to contact these vendors and talk to them and say, listen, I depend on you guys for this, that, and the other thing. I need to make sure that you have policies in place, policies and procedures in place, so that in the event of a severe winter storm, we need to make sure that we've got you guys have everything in place so that we can continue to operate normally. If you have a business continuity consultant that works for you, they probably have a form letter they can give you. If not, call up your legal counsel, tell them what you need, have them draft up a letter, get it in writing. Make the request in writing, maybe make an initial call over the phone, then send them the official request in writing, have them respond to you in writing so that you have proof of what they're telling you. Let them share the information with you. Don't ask them for any information that you're not supposed to have, but certainly you need to get a sense of what they've got in place so that they can continue to serve you at time of disaster. And I know everyone on this call has heard from their mom and dad at one point in their lives not to put all your eggs in one basket. You need to determine after speaking to them if you can truly depend on these vendors. You need to make sure, hey, can I truly depend on these guys? Because I have to tell you, if they're not giving you the warm fuzzies, then you probably put all your eggs in one basket. And then it's time to start thinking about getting other vendors on board that provide the same thing. Spread the wealth around a little bit. It's all about you being able to provide your clients with what you need. And while you want to reward vendors that have been good to you, you need to make sure you can stay in business. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't get caught with your pants down. You need to make sure you can stay in business. Facilities management. This is something that many folks just forget to think about. We have the winter storm. We've got all these things in place. Our vendors are in good shape. We've got everybody working from home, and things are moving. We've shifted production. And then it comes time to get back to the office, and you pull up to the office building, and what do you see? Nobody paved the parking lot. Nobody took the ice off the sidewalks. Nobody can get in or out of the building. Isn't this terrific? Now what's going to happen is all your employees are going to pull up, see the condition of the parking lot. They're going to wave at you as they turn around, make a U-turn, get back on the highway, and go home. So you really need to determine if your facility is going to be managed properly following that winter storm. Want to make sure that the parking areas are going to be cleaned properly so the employees can park. You make sure that the walkways are cleared, the sidewalks are cleared. Please, we don't want to go through all this trouble to have somebody slip, fall, break something in their body, and you have to be liable for it. We've gone through so much effort to put all this stuff in place. Sometimes it's the simple things that escape our notice. Certainly, if you own your own facility, somebody in your company is responsible for facilities management, even if you've outsourced it to a vendor. Take the time, like right after this call, to sit down with them and say, hey, do we have everything in place we need to clean the property properly? And if we need to invest in a little bit extra snow removal equipment or maybe even a snow removal service, believe me, again, go to Joe Google. He will point you in the direction you need. You can find plenty of services and equipment that you can buy or even lease for the season to get yourself cleaned up properly. If you lease your facility space, contact your landlord. Contact the management company that runs the place. Talk to them. Ask them about their winter weather cleaning policies. Ensure they have everything in place. I'm not even going to cover what to do if you don't like what you hear. That's for your legal counsel to worry about. But certainly, contact your property management and let them know that you're concerned, that you want to make sure everything is done properly. You don't want anybody falling. You want everybody to be able to get to work in one piece. Remember what I said at the beginning. Priority number one is safety, and that includes your parking lot, your sidewalks. So, we've covered an awful lot of good stuff here today. We're going to get to some questions now in a few minutes. But, when you're thinking about all these types of things, when you're thinking about your business continuity plan, your pandemic plan, this, that, and the other thing, don't be the person that gets called into his boss's office where the boss can sit down and say to you, how is it that we did not plan for disaster? Because I can assure you, as our founder Tom Abruzzo once said, The only thing more difficult than planning, and planning is not an easy job, will be explaining why you didn't plan. Absolutely, it's time, it's expense, but believe me, in the long run, your business will be much better off for it. With that, I would like to thank all of you for listening to my New York accent for the past 35 minutes. Thank you for listening. I hope you all have a very safe, productive, and fun winter. And I'm going to ask Bob to come on the line now, and we're going to get to some questions.
All right, great. We do have a few questions here. If anyone does have any questions for Carmine, please, again, utilize the question panel found on the right-hand side of your screen. First question, do you advise putting severe winter weather information directly into my BCP, or should I create a separate plan?
Excellent question. You know, that's one of the typical questions asked of our clients when we start to address putting in some of these provisos. I hate to say the words, it depends, but again, you need to take a step back, look at your company, look at the geographic area where you live, look at the types of weather you've had over the last 8, 10 years, and think, how much information do I need to put into place for my winter weather policies, for my winter weather action items? You know, if your business continuity plan is already up to 400 or 500 pages, if putting this information in your plan is going to make your plan so much of a problem to navigate, if you have so much information, then maybe, you know what, maybe it pays to think about creating a winter weather plan as an addition or as an addendum to your regular plan. So certainly, you know, although a lot of this information could be provided in your BCP, where it comes to specific winter planning or weather planning, it might make sense, depending on how much information you have, to put it into a separate document. Excellent question.
All right. When putting together a winter weather policy, how specific should it be? What weather situation should it cover?
As specific as humanly possible, because your employees will act as surgeons, and they will do their best to dissect that policy as much as they possibly can. And although it might cost you a few lunches or dinners for those management types who are sitting in the conference room putting this together, again, in the long run, you're going to be much better off making it as specific as possible, put as many details in it as need be. Again, share those details with your employees. As far as what situations to cover, you know, again, look at the archives of NOAA. Go to the NOAA website, go to the National Weather Service website, look at your geographic area, see what's happened over the last 8 or 10 years, and go by that. What kind of winter weather have you had? Do you get a lot of ice? Do you get a lot of snow? Do you get a lot of severe cold? You know, put everything in perspective, look at what's happened, cover as much of these scenarios, as much information as you possibly can.
All right. And is it advisable to plan for each different type of severe winter weather occurrence?
You know, when we do a risk threat assessment for our clients, a lot of them sit and say, my God, there are so many risks. How can we possibly plan for all of them? You know, at the beginning of our webinar today, I gave you the definition of the word disaster. And basically, what you want to focus on is the result of a disaster incident. So although, you know, there's a blizzard, there's an ice storm, there might be winter flooding, there might be other types of winter activity, you don't necessarily have to plan for each one individually. What you're planning for, and this goes for any type of business continuity plan that you're putting together, when you're putting a plan together, you're planning for the results of the incident, the fact that you cannot operate normally. That's what you're planning for. You're planning for, hey, something happened, I can't operate normally. How do I get back to normal or as close as humanly possible? Whether it's some sort of winter event or some other type of disaster, let's not concern ourselves too much with what happened. Let's concern ourselves with the fact that it happened and now we can't operate normally. That's the best way to go.
All right. Do you recommend including a severe winter or severe weather component to standard service contracts?
Absolutely. If your service is going to depend on being able to put your service out there and be successful in putting it out there despite the weather, or if you need to make allowances for, hey, our services may be delayed just a tad because of severe weather, absolutely. There's an acronym that we all know, CYA. You want to cover that backside. You know, take no chance. If it means keeping an employee happy, If it means keeping your business legally safe, then by all means put that proviso in any agreement you have. Protect yourself. No question.
All right. At what point does the documentation become simply an exercise where it's form over function? During a disaster, depending on your business, how likely are people going to find the plan and read it? What has been your experience?
My experience is that people don't understand, and that's an excellent question. My experience has been that people don't really get what the plan is all about until you've done a plan exercise. Yes, those are dirty words. I'm sorry. But I'm telling you, I have seen senior management types at mega corporations come out of tabletop experiences and say, my God, this document really has a purpose. And really, it does. Honest. We wouldn't lie to you. Really, those tabletop exercises, those physical simulations, absolutely, they are the way to go. They will really point the way to the usage of the plan, having people pretending to have a disaster, pretending to recover your business, using the plan is going to really highlight for them what this plan is all about. Number two, having an awareness exercise where maybe you're going to call them up on the phone and say, hey, tell me, in what section of the plan are you going to be able to find your vendor contact information? Or ask them in what section of the plan will they be able to find a listing of all your alternate work sites. Doing things like that, having an awareness program, doing tabletop and physical exercises, believe me, if you go through those extra steps, people who are going to be involved in the plan will certainly, absolutely get the importance of the document. Now, that being said, be prepared for feedback. Someone's always going to have a remark. Somebody's always going to have something to say about how to improve it. Take what they're saying, consider it. Hey, if they can help you improve the document, make it easier to use, by all means, consider it. Great question.
All right. Your discussion would seem to indicate that those in the area frequent with winter storms put more in the winter plan. Wouldn't the opposite be true, as those areas that are least accustomed to it are much more dramatically impacted?
I knew somebody would ask this. Got to be somebody from San Diego or Florida. I knew somebody from a warm city would be on the call. Let me say this. If you're from a city that generally doesn't have winter, let me say a couple of things. Number one, consider your vendors. If you're sitting out in San Diego listening to me, you may have a vendor in Michigan or Minnesota or New York, and those places get winter weather. So you need to make sure that your vendors are in good shape. You need to make sure that you can get to your clients and provide them the products and services they need. You need to make sure that what you're providing, if it travels a physical route, can get through places. I mean, if you have a truck going over 1,000 miles, chances are he's going to go through a winter weather city. Now, the other thing, you might be on one of those borderline cities. We have a client in Atlanta, and they tell me that they generally don't get a lot of severe winter weather. Well, last winter they got 3 inches of snow, and their community ground to a halt because they didn't know what to do with 3 inches of snow. Now, granted, I'm from New York, 3 inches of snow, I get a broom, I clear the way, and I go to work. But really, take a step back, think about what can possibly happen. Again, go to those websites. Go to NOAA, go to National Weather Service. What's happened in my area over the last 10 years, and that should be a pretty good indication of what you'll expect. True, the last year or two has been very severe, but if you look at a good snapshot of 10 years, that'll really give you a sense of what you can expect on the average for the next year. So, just because you're sitting out there in San Diego or Honolulu, you still might need to worry about winter.
All right, we'll take one more question. If we do not get to your question today, Carmine will have all the questions that were asked, and we'll follow up after the webinar. What is the best method to use when contacting my vendors to ask them if I can rely on them?
Put it in writing, put it in writing, put it in writing. Certainly an initial phone call saying, hi, this is Joe Google from Google Enterprises. I'd like to speak to you about this, that, and the other thing. And tell them you're going to send a written request to get some reassurances about the products and services that they need to provide to you. And then absolutely, whether it's in email form or you send them a registered letter or you send them a Word doc or a PDF, put the official request in writing. Even if you have to take the piece of paper, put your signature to it, scan it, and email it to them. Put it in writing, and absolutely request the response to be in writing again. And these responses that you get from the vendors, put them in your plan. When push comes to shove and you're faced with a problem and you need that vendor, and if they start giving you a little nonsense, you need to be able to pull that letter out and say, hey, I'm holding the letter you sent to me. on December 7th, 2011, you told me you guaranteed me services. You know what? It's all about keeping yourself in business. Get everything in writing, keep it documented, keep it with or near the plan so you can prove what they said they were going to do for you.
All right, perfect. So any last remarks there, Carmine?
You know what, folks? You just plan the best you can. You want to minimize the impacts. Once in a while, things are going to happen that you didn't plan for, but you know what? That's what planning is all about. After any event, the best thing to do is treat it like an exercise and step back and say, hey, we had an event. What did we learn? What can we do to improve our plan and make ourselves even better for next time? So, you know what? Even if something happens that you didn't plan for, that's okay. Take it as a learning experience. Pick yourself up, continue, improve your plan. By all means, this winter, have a wonderful winter, but a safe winter. I hope your biggest decision is what movie to rent on a Saturday night rather than how am I getting to work Monday morning.
All right, wonderful. Thank you again for your attendance today. We again hope you found some great information from today's webinar. DRJ would also like to thank Carmine for his time here today, as well as TAMP System for sponsoring today's webinar. We'll be
Thank you, Bob.
All right, thanks. We'll be emailing everyone a link to the recording of this webinar. You may view this webinar as frequently as you wish, or you may share it with your peers. If you have any additional questions, please contact Disaster Coverage Journal. Thank you again, and this now ends today's webinar.